He, uh,
You have no words.
yeah, it just... What?
So we're here to party.
Like it's the greatest year in film?
Yes.
2017?
Wait a minute.
Oh, wait. 1999.
Yeah, that's the one.
The year of Bicentennial Man.
Oh man, I forgot the introductions last time. With me today is Brandon.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, boy.
Oh boy, indeed.
Yeah, this one will be interesting.
Have you read any Asimov?
No. Well, yes. Because I think he wrote I think it was called The Answer. It was something like some short story of a computer that created the universe or something like that. I don't remember. But I didn't read iRobot. I haven't read the Foundation series.
I haven't either. I think I own one, but I haven't read any of it. But there are so many movies based on it.
Yeah.
Blade Runner, isn't that Asimov too?
Yes, because that was...
Do androids dream of electric sheep?
Yes. Yeah, and this movie started where they just explicitly say it's based off of this story and this story.
Uh-huh.
And I hadn't read either of those.
Yeah, I was just wondering because they do start out with the 3 laws of robotics.
Mm-hmm.
And is that a running theme throughout his work?
Yeah, I think it's it's from iRobot. And it definitely became part of that speculative fiction baseline.
Right.
Because any talk about robots going forward usually refers to those laws.
Right.
Because it's like the things that we need as humans to make us feel better about
to live
robots.
with AI.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm replaying Mass Effect and thinking about the Geth again. Anyway, so yeah, we watched Bicentennial Man. Unfortunately, Amber couldn't be with us, but I hear you have a lot of notes from her that...
Yeah, we have a lot of shared issues.
I'm sure that I do as
and
well.
Observations, yeah.
The Imdb Summary is an android endeavors to become human as he gradually acquires emotions.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good summary. That makes it sound a lot shorter than it is. Like, you've just summed up. Like, the amount of time it takes for him to deal with his humanity is way, way too long.
Yeah.
It feels like a 200-year-old movie.
There are a lot of subplots.
It does kind of feel like some of those old novels, science fiction novels, where there's just so much going on.
It's very disjointed.
Like, even though I didn't read iRobot, I read some of Heinlein stuff, like Stranger in a Strange Land, or no, it was Time Enough for Love. I didn't finish that book. There was so much going on in that book that it definitely reminded me of this movie in terms of it's speculative fiction, and it's going to take its time to speculate about a lot of things. Oh, boy.
Okay, God, where do we even start here?
I have my first impressions.
Go for it.
You know,
first,
yes.
Had you seen this before?
No, it was on TV a couple times in growing up and like family visits, but no scene, no visual ever pulled me into it. Like, it just did not seem appealing at all. Mm-hmm. So this is the first time I watched it. I didn't even know much about it going into it.
Right. Yeah, I didn't either. I had seen it at the time, but it was only once. And I hadn't remembered a thing about it, but as I was watching it, a lot of the visuals were familiar to me. Like walking the world through the snow and finding some yellow thing, like for some reason.
Yeah.
Like he's looking for all these other robots that may have also developed emotions. And I don't know, just a lot of stuff hit me as familiar, but I wouldn't have been able to pull it from memory beforehand.
The only visual I had going forward was Robin Williams as a robot, and that didn't really appeal to me. So when I was looking it up, I remember being surprised of like, wait, this was a comedy? I didn't remember that this was supposed to be a comedy. Because that was at the time of, wasn't Patch Adams around that time? It was like when Robin Williams was doing some non-comedy stuff, but had comedy elements.
Like I think What Dreams May Come was maybe 98.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
God. It's kind of along the same lines as Grave of the Fireflies.
Oh boy.
Where maybe only once every couple years you can maybe stomach
once in a lifetime.
Sadness. Yeah.
Yeah, I have seen Grave of the Fireflies, so I don't need to see it again.
Yeah. Okay. I'm good. I'm set for life. Yeah, that's kind of like that. Okay. So your initial impressions?
So I guess it's kind of after the first scene where Sam Neill buys the robot. and they open it up, and nobody likes it.
Right. It's creepy.
Yeah, the first thing they order the robot to do is like go stand in the basement in the corner. Of like you've got this beautiful mansion, got this whole house. You buy this amazing futuristic robot, and you just go tell it to stand in the corner downstairs in the dark.
It is kind of weird because, like, what would you do with a computer that moves on its like?
I guess it
has to do something.
Yeah, that's the question this movie is set out to answer, I guess. Like,
and if it's meant to serve humans, then it's going to serve humans unless you tell it otherwise.
Mm-hmm. If I had a robot like this and it was an appliance, like a Roomba or something like that, instead of going to the basement and dark and be all creepy down there, you would think it would be like near the front door or something like that, like something that would
ready when you need it.
But this whole concept is just freaky because, and I'm sure I'm going to talk about this at some point, but you have this robot. It is essentially a slave.
Yes.
It is very strange.
I mean, the word robot comes from the word slave in like some other language. I forget what, but...
Okay, this is a positive of the movie. This is the first time I really thought about how gross this whole concept is because, yes, this is a machine that was built to serve man, to make it easier for people to deal. It's like a phone. It's got its functions that makes life easier. The problem is, though, when you take that appliance and you personify it,
you give it autonomy in some way.
Or even if you don't, even if it is only existing to answer to you and respond to you, because you have shaped it into a human, we personify things all the time. Right. So like, even though that's its function, it feels gross to be like, hey, do this for me.
Yeah.
Because you're speaking to something that looks like a human
and
is meant to talk like a human.
There's a lot of science on things like Alexa and Cortana of like, we always put a female voice as the default in this.
Yeah.
And it's like having female as the default is also like, here's what we order around.
Yeah.
There's already discussion about that kind of thing.
I mean, and especially with Siri and Alexa, it's like they're always presented as the assistant.
Yes.
Of like, that is the stereotypical office assistant. It's like, come on, you can do better than that.
At least you can make Siri a British man or whatever.
Yeah. Give you options. But sure. Having that be the default. But at least that is just the voice that you talk to. You're just talking to the phone. Having Robin Williams there, it's saying, hey, go make me a sandwich or whatever. That feels gross.
Yeah, but it's like you were saying with the personification of these female voices we're giving it a gendered pronoun. So we're kind of going in that direction already of like trying, like you said, trying to shape this program to respond to us in a certain way gives it personality in a way. And that starts to happen immediately in this movie.
Yeah. And with Siri, like there's some answers that are more personal, not personalized, but more, there's more personality. Yeah. It's so strange when personality is injected of like, you're not just getting a straight answer, you're getting Siri's answer. And that's weird. But like, it would be different if this robot were shaped in any other way. Like if I were talking to my Roomba and I said, hey, go clean that over there, that would be fine. That wouldn't feel weird. This is just like this disc that I talk to and it goes over there and does that's its purpose.
It has this objective goal.
Yeah. Actually, man, I'm making this sound like this was a well-done movie.
Whoops.
Yeah. When the box is opened and the android comes out, it's suddenly like all this family instantly has a new family member. Even though it's just an object and it's meant to be an appliance, it's like a new brother stepped outside of that box.
Right. Like
and they all react that way.
Older sister has some contention with it.
Yeah.
Like you would a sibling.
Yeah. And the mother too. Yeah. And it's like when it's just floating in the background, like when they were eating dinner in the kitchen and like the android served dinner and then...
And he just stands there.
Yeah. And they're like, dude, go to the kitchen. And even then he goes to the kitchen and he's like staring into
he just stands facing the cabinets.
It's like, yeah, you got this thing to help you, but it's essentially just another person who's there that you're ignoring, and it's weird and ordering around and kind of fucked up.
Like, you're still being watched. You're constantly being watched now.
Yeah. Yeah. He's probably recording all this stuff.
I mean, I definitely put tape over most of the cameras on my devices, so just saying.
You gotta put tape on his eyes.
Yeah.
Gross. I also noticed that this is a stupid technical thing. When the robot was put into the basement and he was going to charge himself, he pulled out the wire for him. It didn't even have a grounding plug. It was just an old style. He's a man made of metal, and like he's a complete shock hazard.
Man, this is why I have guests on this show, because that's some shit I did not notice.
I just saw that and I just shook my head. It's so stupid. Get this really ancient plug pulled out of your chest.
One of the early influences, like one of the early things that we see of him developing a personality, other than he's given a name almost immediately.
Yeah.
Is the older sister hates it so much that she gives it an order to jump out the window.
Yeah. So when I first saw that, I thought it was a violation of one of the rules.
That's what I wondered, because it hurt him. It hurt him. Like,
yeah, but it was just the order of the rules were different, where it was like, it can't hurt itself unless you tell it to. And I think that's a flaw in the rules. Like, you shouldn't be able to just tell your iPhone to go die in a fire.
I was also kind of wondering if he was factoring in the fact that he could be repaired from that height.
So when I first saw that scene, that's exactly what I was thinking, where like, I thought there was a violation of the law. Mm-hmm. So I thought he was thinking, I'm going to fall, I'm made of metal, I'm going to be fine, so I'm going to jump out this window. Mm-hmm. But then he came back and he was clearly busted up.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's a good set of rules for robots if you can just... Because it was like...
So we're like 10 minutes in and you've already found the flaw in Asimov's entire...
Well, I guess it's how you want to define a flaw, because it's like I think the ruling was like, it can't hurt itself unless it conflicts with the second rule, mm-hmm. which just essentially says you can just tell your robots to go die and it'll do it. Like, that doesn't seem right. I feel like it would have been the other way around. It would have been like, it will only hurt itself to protect a human, or mm-hmm. something like that. But apparently it's not a violation of the rule.
So the first rule is do not harm a human.
Yes.
The second, protect itself from harm?
I think the second one is obey humans unless it conflicts with the first law. Mm-hmm. And then the third is...
Can you look it up?
Yeah, let me do that, actually. That's better than just speculating it. Okay, so first law, robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being come to harm. Right. So we got that one. Second law, a robot must obey orders given by human beings except where orders conflict with the first law. And then third, robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second laws, meaning that second law to obey
supersedes.
Yeah. Its own protection or its own which I don't know. I don't like that one.
Yeah, that does seem inefficient in some way.
Because then every teenage girl who's angry at robots can just be like, "Hey, you go jump off a roof."
And he's going to have to.
Yeah, and then you got all these dead robots everywhere.
So after that, he develops a fear. He develops a fear of heights because of this situation.
Which I actually like how they play, because like he came back into the house and he was twitching and his eyes were going mm-hmm. crazy and his dirt. And then like at the far end of the movie, 3 years after 3 years of watching the movie later, it's like someone mentions the height that they're at in a building and his eye does a little twitch.
Oh.
It was a pretty nice callback. Again, another thing I said that makes this movie sound better than it is. It's terrible.
So you say it's terrible.
Yes.
What is it that is terrible?
Oh, man. So it's just so much of the dialogue. Yeah. Where do I start? So like the Sam Neill and his wife, I can't remember either of their names.
I don't know that he was ever named. Like in the credits, he's called Sir.
Yeah, that's true. I think in one point they say his name, but
maybe like the wife
doesn't matter. I think it's during. Yeah, I think maybe the wife says a first name or something like that. But he and his wife are like playing a romantic night of chess with these giant pieces. Uh-huh. Like I guess that's what rich people do. I can't even see
the board.
Yeah, they're so tall. They live in this gigantic house with a private beach and all that. So they're playing chess, and his eyes are bugging out, doing all the possible moves that could happen, and
robot analysis of all the
yeah. I think they were only playing chess so that he could do that. And I even forget what came of that scene. Was there any kind of meaningful interaction? And that's a problem that I have with this movie, is that there's so much interaction, so much of it just seems meaningless.
Is contrived for this one. I mean, of course, all movies are contrived, but this, you can feel it.
Yeah, like they had that scene where Sam is trying to talk about the concept of sex to the robot.
Yeah, that's, oh God.
That whole scene just didn't need to exist.
The worst.
And it only existed just because in the future, when he had upgrades, they could call back to that because he found out about sex. And that even that didn't matter. It was just like this awkward scene.
Why did it have to be like he could have just given him fucking books? First of all, they still have books.
Yeah, they have encyclopedias. That's how he learned to whittle.
God. I mean, I can understand having like an antique record player.
And then where's the internet? Like, why isn't the robot hooked up to the internet? There's no... It's like he can only learn things either from books or from another human. There's no database to plug into of like, oh, this is like what sex is. Like he has no
software upgrade.
Yeah, it's just like
in a weird way.
A dumb robot that has no no way to learn.
Basically flying blind on his programming. Like there's no...
So he's not supposed to learn, but then he does.
Right.
And he starts developing a personality. Well, as best as he can, I guess.
He is creative.
Yeah.
You wanted to talk about this little horse figurine.
So the kids are playing in their private beach or whatever.
Yep.
So the little girl, she's got all of her toys out. She's playing on rocks. Her toys are made of glass. Mm-hmm. She's got a glass horse galloping on this rock.
Which she is handing to a metal man.
A man made of metal. And then he drops it. He like barely was able to grab it. And then it falls and it shatters on the rock she was playing with. And then she's immediately like, that was my favorite horse. I hate you. And then I guess that whole concept was too much for him. And he really took it to heart and wanted to make it up for her by whittling this horse. And that's when I guess they found out he's able to act on his own and be creative. And he's like researching horses and how they run and what would be most appealing to a little girl, a horse in this specific pose. And then I can't remember if that was when he started building clocks, but it's probably...
I think it's later. I think Sam Neill first takes him to Stephen Root, who is like the head of this robotics company.
Oh yeah, who does not seem to really like robots at all. Like I know he sees them as appliances.
Yeah, I think he doesn't like the idea of AI.
Yeah, because he's like, oh, this thing is creative. We got to kill it.
Yeah.
We got to wipe it.
I mean, it is dangerous. Like it does get into philosophical questions that, like I said, are touched upon in Mass Effect. But I think it's... Or is it before that? Because Sam Neill teaches him to make clocks because that's
his profession.
That's what Sam Neill does. And he becomes so good at it that he makes bank. Like, they start selling these clocks and Sam Neill's like, well, he made it. He gets the money.
Yeah, they had that.
He has his own bank account and...
That was a good... okay, so here's the problem with the movie. We're talking about really interesting concepts of like robots having ownership over their creative properties and setting up bank accounts and like what it is to be human. We're talking about the concepts. The movie is showing these concepts in a very boring, very slowly paced way. And I think that probably gets to the core of why I hate this movie is that, yes, these are good concepts.
You're maybe trying to apply drama to something that is more suited for a scholastic discussion.
Yeah. Like, if I read this in the book, it'd be one thing, that'd be fine. But with just the way everything is filmed and the way the script is written, it's just like so plotting. It's so... Everything is too elongated.
Yeah, it really, like, I feel like every time we moved forward a couple years, it was like, okay, we're doing this now, huh?
Yeah. It wasn't efficient with its time, I think is what it ultimately comes down to. And
do you have any ideas of how they might have done better? I mean, I guess it's hard to say without having read the source material.
So I think the way to do this is to not make Bicentennial Man. I think it's to insert these concepts into other films with other plots and
perhaps
have this
iRobot.
be... I actually haven't watched that movie either.
It's been a long time for me, but I remember feeling that one was interesting.
See, like I think of... What's a good robot movie that I'm thinking of? I mean, something like RoboCop or something like... I wasn't going to say Chappie, but I hate Chappie so much.
Don't. We're not going there.
God, I hate Chappie. Chappie's just a shitty RoboCop.
I haven't even seen it, and I hate it.
My advice, if you ever want to watch Chappie, just watch RoboCop again.
Okay.
Chappie is just a shitty RoboCop.
The original?
Yeah.
Okay.
That one's great. I'm trying to... Because, like, I think about Mass Effect. If you're going to do these concepts in some kind of visual form,
Does it need like that space to sprawl out? Is that what you're getting at?
I think it just needs to exist in another story. This is existing as its own story.
I see.
And that alone
makes
it...
It's the only reason for the story to exist rather than coloring another story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when you read fiction, and I keep saying this again, speculative fiction versus just fiction. Mm-hmm. Like if you're writing a story just to put these concepts out there in a very explicit way, that's fine, but it's not as enjoyable as if you just have this piece of good fiction that happens to have these concepts. We're smart enough to be able to think about what this means for a robot to have personality and stuff like that. We can get that on our own. We don't really need it shoved in our face like Bicentennial Man.
Right, like it's just a way for a writer to show how smart he is.
Yeah, it's like, look at this concept that I came up with. Let me write about basically just this concept.
Wow.
And wrap that concept in the most boring, plain thing.
But then also very gross in several ways.
Yeah. So I think that's my ultimate issue with Bicentennial Man is just, it's too preachy, I think is the word I'm looking for.
It's also weird because he's sort of less like a robot that came from Earth than an alien who you have to teach everything to. Like, why is a lot of this stuff not already in his programming?
Yeah, basic stuff like goodbye or goodnight.
Right.
Instead of going into an infinite loop of saying goodnight over and over again. No, this is how humans say goodbye.
Or how humans function on a basic level. Mm-hmm. Like where they come from.
But I think some of that is just the filmmakers probably having fun with the concept of this blank slate of, isn't it weird that we say goodnight in this way? Or like, we say goodnight and the response isn't, yeah, it is a good night. It's like, we say goodnight as in, all right, get the fuck out. So I think they were having fun with stuff like that. Like, I feel like there were other examples, but they're just not coming to mind because there's so much in this movie. The first thing that really bothered me was that we were introduced to this family and these girls, and the little girl's starting to take a shine on the robot, which is already kind of gross.
Yeah.
And then she's teaching him to play piano, and then immediately they grow up. Mm-hmm. And it's like everything that you knew about these kids is immediately gone. These kids don't exist anymore. They're basically dead.
I could not tell how old they were supposed to be.
I think that was a problem with casting too, because the ages didn't seem to line up. It was just
like that woman played Miss Honey, right? In Matilda. I think that's who that was.
I can't remember. But it was like I couldn't tell how old anyone was.
No. Because like both of the girls are still living at home, and the mom comes home at one point and there's like the mean older sister is now like punk rock girl.
Yeah. She looked younger than the little sister.
She did. And then the mom comes home and like tries to ground her for making out with her boyfriend on their bike out in front of the house. Like this younger sister is about to get married or something. So like, what how old are you? I could not figure it out.
This weird universe where time doesn't exist.
Oh my God.
So that bothered me, just having the two girls basically just stop existing in the movie, because they were building a rapport with the specific actors, I think, and then they just basically die.
Right.
They leave the movie. So I guess that's the point, though, is that because he's a robot and can live forever, he's seeing all these different life cycles. But at that time, I wasn't really ready for that transition yet, if that makes sense. Yeah. It was like, of course, these people are going to grow up and they're going to have the same relationships, but
the movie has not earned this relationship that, like, it's obvious that the younger sister is in love with the robot.
Yeah.
And like, he carved a tiny horse once, and that's all we got to see.
Yeah.
And we have no idea what happened in those intervening years.
It was like we got the horse and we got the piano scene, and then they grew up, and it's like, what happened in all that other time?
But like, why? We have no clue how much personality he actually has at this point, and she is... It's weird.
Especially when she starts talking about the guy she's getting married with. Oh, I shouldn't have drank a soda. And then...
we can start the podcast.
And she's talking about the guy she's going to get married with and how she doesn't like him, or like she doesn't seem into him. She's dropping hints that she's more into Andrew, the robot.
Which is like, he has enough personality for her to love him, but not enough to recognize that she loves him. It does not make any sense.
It's just icky.
But yeah, Yuckers.
Yeah, exactly. Another Yuckers movie. So she drops the hint that she'd rather be married to Andrew than the guy she's actually getting married to, which, hey, that's a sign. Don't get married.
Right.
But she does anyway. And then, was he at the... I don't even know. Was he even at the wedding? Did it even matter?
Yes, he wore tux. Okay. This was like after he got the first upgrade of giving him facial expressions.
Oh, man. I forgot.
That was maybe the creepiest, like the most Uncanny Valley version.
Yes. It's that creepy smile.
Yeah.
The cheeks. Like, there's no...
I hate it.
Oh, it's just too smooth. It's gross.
Yeah. There's no wrinkles. Maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, I think so.
Oy.
And it's like, they had him for how many years? And that was the first time they thought to put clothes on him.
Yeah. That's the other part of like, we don't know what happened in this intervening time other than he has a personality and didn't think of this himself, first of all. And second, they didn't either.
Yeah. Like, you're personifying this person. You're feeling a connection. This girl's in love with this robot. And at no point she's like, oh, yeah, he'd look good with a vest.
Right.
Or something like that.
Jesus.
Oh, man. So I'm going through my notes to make sure I'm not missing anything. I'm struck by how extravagant this life is. Because those girls were eating like Captain Crunch out of like these fancy stoneware bowls and like these like really fancy silverware. And it's just, what is this life? What do they even... Like, I didn't realize until later he was a clock maker, repair. I don't even know. Something to do with clocks.
S-Town would tell us that it's very difficult to repair a clock.
Yeah.
So you make bank.
Yeah. We were also thinking about S-Town. I think because we were wondering how you could get so much money from it.
Plus, I wonder if at that point, maybe part of the reasoning was it's this outdated technology.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Because, like, how many people have clocks and who's fixing them? And and it's also...
Who needs an analog clock? Nobody.
Yeah.
So it would become a status symbol at that point.
Yeah, and it's a very creative process they're doing to make these.
And something I connected that to toward the end was the younger sister's, I guess, granddaughter was some kind of, like, art restorer.
Yeah.
So, like, all of the professions that we see are related to the past in some way. I don't know if it's because they couldn't... I mean, it's so dated, but I think they were maybe trying to prevent it from being so dated by forcefully putting a lot of the things into the past.
That's a good observation, because, like, there are so many things, especially when it skipped generations and it became more futuristic, it was always hard to really place the time because...
Okay, so the future always looks like the 50s.
Yes. The 50s, but then there is some weird device that lets you know that it's more futuristic than the last generation.
The design of buildings and stuff is always like so sterile and plain, but then the style and fashion is always like so bonkers bananas.
Yeah.
Like, why is that?
There were so many weird hats.
Yes. Weird hats, weird hairstyles.
I saw some lady wearing 2 hats. She had a hat, but then she had the same hat that was on top of that hat.
It was the same hat?
It was the same hat.
Oh my God.
It looked like something out of Team Fortress 2 or something.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
Dr. Seuss.
So another thing I forgot in my notes, the scene where they're talking about sex and the shocked faces that Andrew kept making, it was just like, he was doing jaw-dropping stuff, but he had his hinge mouth at that point. Like, I think the scene was just there so he would do weird face stuff. Yeah, I have in my notes. Why did this whole scene need to happen? Is there any connection? The whole point was that millions of sperm die and it's messy and people love it. Like, that was the takeaway. They just stopped after that.
Yeah, I think it also planted this idea that he cares about every life in some way. But yeah, in the creepiest way that they could ever have depicted that.
Yeah.
He cares about every sperm.
Well, don't get your hopes up, man.
Oy.
So then I have the transition, and immediately after the transition, I have House Full of Clocks.
House Full of Clocks.
Very creepy. Won't stop building clocks over and over again. And I guess that's when he starts making bank. But yeah, they just deal with it. They just accept all these clocks and leave them in their house.
Right, that's the thing. He's been making these clocks, and they haven't been getting rid of them until they finally have the idea of like, oh, we could sell them, I guess. Jesus. Which, I mean, we could do the thing that I do for a job with him. Like, I make money off of these. I just have all of this money sitting here. I don't know.
But instead they have
I'm not a rich person, so I don't think.
Yeah. But instead they have the whole house filled with clocks. They're over every single surface. They're on tables, they're on counters, and they are literally being driven insane.
Presumably they all go off every hour.
Yeah. And they're like, the wife is so shook anytime they go off. And like they've been dealing this for 20, 30 years. Ugh. And no one thought to just say, hey, enough with the clocks already.
Maybe we don't have to wind them, or maybe we can just not.
But no, they have to go whole hog and crank up the volume for every single one. So then I have the eye twitch on the 37th floor when they were talking to maybe they're talking to the bank at this point. I don't know. It doesn't matter. And then I have gross love triangle with the robot. Uh-huh. Because I think, honestly, I don't even know what's happening in this movie at this point. Yeah, I just have, at no point in the 20-something year gap, no one thought to put clothes on him, even though he had his own personality and was unique. Mm-hmm. Gross mouth makes him look like a cartoon, just in time to show his sadness about the wedding. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that was like, he just got the upgrade. Yep. They just got married.
She's walking down the aisle, and that's the first time we really see that new face.
Yeah, I got to see that complex emotion of, I'm smiling because
I should.
This is an obligation smile. But you can see through my emotion that this is really hurting me. Oh yeah, someone had a beach hat that looked like a king cobra because it had like the frills coming down the side of the back. I think it was the mom on the beach.
There was only one hat that I noticed, and it was toward the end.
What kind of hat was that?
It was like, it was kind of like straw. It had lots of things hanging off of it. I don't know. It was like if you had seen grass in a field become a hat. I don't know.
The wind just blew in the perfect way to wind up all these. So then I have stupid future kitchen with Sam in a Jedi robe. He's giving, I guess Andrew came up asking for freedom.
There's a physical newspaper. They have physical newspapers, which is like, whenever they think about the future, they're thinking so much about the androids and that philosophy, and they're looking at the design and doing the 50s thing, but then they don't think about the other tech at all.
Yeah.
There's no consideration for, even The Simpsons had Skype. I
was going to say, like, maybe these are like Luddites, like in terms of like, maybe we don't want to get all this technology.
That is true. They do.
But then they do
have their own, that house stays in the family. That it's like this very beautiful English cottage looking type house when, again, presumably the rest of society is moving forward into these other types of bland futuristic houses. Yeah. The kitchen gets a redesign, but the outside.
Yeah, some of these redesigns are just bad. So then, like, Sam is talking about how much he liked having Andrew in the family and that he's part of the family. Mm-hmm. And then Andrew asks for freedom, and Sam's like, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
You take your freedom and you get out. Andrew's like, hey, I want to be free. It's going to look the same. I love you guys. I want to be here, be a part of your family. But Sam's like, I agree. You want your freedom. Now leave. But it just didn't make any sense.
Yeah, I struggled with that too. I wonder if Sam Neill was having this personal struggle with, like, yes, I understand what he is saying, but I also recognize that he is becoming more human and that could change, and that scares me because I like him in this capacity. It's at that point that I will then have to grapple with, but that's the thing, like, if he is free, then that problem is solved, so I don't know.
Yeah. So I think you're trying to apply a good thing on top of a good layer on top of that, a complex layer. But I think it's just as simple as the writers wanted to create some conflict between
some irrational, emotional
him asking for freedom.
Reaction.
Because, like, at that point, Sam has this reaction, exiles him. Uh-huh. We don't see him again until he's on his deathbed, where he says he regrets that.
Yeah.
So, like, in terms of movie timeline, in terms of his character's timeline,
like 3 minutes in between those two. I don't remember.
Yeah, probably, or it could be like 30 minutes. It's like
time is a flat circle.
Yeah, it's like his character doesn't develop at all. It's just you must leave me, and then I'm dying. I'm sorry I made you leave.
Again, it's like this 20-year gap where we have no clue what happens. We just get these hints, but it's still so amorphous and like, what are we supposed to do with this information?
Yeah. So I think that scene only existed so that he could go build his stupid wooden house on the beach, right in front of the tide. Like, he's building and the water's like coming up. Like, he's building this stupid wooden house on their property.
I was just going to ask, is it on their property?
I'm pretty sure.
I thought it was the same beach.
Yeah, it looked like it's the same beach. If they meant it to be a different beach, it was probably filmed on the same beach. So it looked the same. And then another excuse for him to go and travel. I think that was the reason why he exiled, because the writers are like, we need him to travel and find other robots. Mm-hmm. How are we going to do that when he wants to be home but can't?
I see.
But again, this is going to make it sound like it's a good movie.
We are not trying to project that.
I was so annoyed that he kept referring to himself as one. One does not do this, one does not do that. I'm like, you're unique.
You have a name.
Yeah, you should be saying like I. And for most of the movie, he only says one, but they do follow up on that. And at that point of being exiled, he refers to himself as I. And Sam's like, dude.
Is that when it happened?
Yeah. Dude, Sam was like, dude, you stopped saying one. Uh-huh. And I thought that was a really good moment.
Right.
Because like the whole time I'm like, he should be.
It's okay. Yeah. So that moment was then the 20 years late because, I mean, the second he had that freedom and autonomy, it should have been the fact that it was because he was this individual with personhood and a personal pronoun. Like, I don't know. And it just now happens?
Yeah.
God.
Way too late.
This is going to be a regular episode, I think.
I think so.
Because goddamn.
Because I have so much more to talk about.
Okay, good. What are some of Amber's notes?
Hers was mostly the stupid clocks, just that the fact that they're not selling them, stuff like that. But her thing was especially the stupid glass horse scene. That girl loved that glass horse. That was her favorite toy. She's playing with it clumsily on rocks.
A brand new robot man. With how much power to just crush anything. Yeah.
And she just hands it to him. And then she gets angry. So angry at him.
Oh my God.
I think those are the two things that stuck out for her. I probably might have some more notes of what she said. But this was a movie that it felt like a Mystery Science Theater movie for us. We were just ragging on it the whole time. It would probably make a good one of those. Actually, it probably would, because there is enough downtime. The pacing is such that you could just insert your own jokes everywhere.
There are a lot of stretches with not a whole lot of dialogue.
God, I hate this movie. In my notes, I have just over and over again of just like, I hate this movie. This is the worst. I just like being grossed out at things. So I have, after him building the weird beach house, he's made of metal and he's going to live next to the ocean. Come on.
He's going to rust.
So then he starts hiking across America. And I thought this was going to be a great scene. He was going to go and see all the different other kinds of scenarios and what other robot-human interactions are going to be like. I was like, this is potentially great. You can go and have like all these other sub-stories.
Like, this is the movie's chance for the creators to show what else is it's their chance to flesh out the world.
Yeah. And this would be great. And instead it's, oh, this robot's dead. Oh, this robot's dead. This robot's dead.
This one's been reprogrammed.
This one is getting fruit and is dancing and has boobs and therefore is now a love interest. Oh, don't do that. Just made this super gendered robot that automatically has to be at least presented as a love interest. Mm-hmm. He tries to follow up on that, finds out she's just in personality mode. Uh-huh. So then he's like, well, shit, I thought you were unique. You're just a fucking robot.
God damn it.
Yeah. But then that's when they meet the robot guy who's got...
Oliver Platt.
I recognize a lot of the people, but I just couldn't place.
I love him. He's in The Three Musketeers. I loved that movie as a kid.
I think he's probably my favorite actor in this movie.
He's very good.
Because
they gave him some weird shit, but yeah, he's good.
Yeah, that's true. But he was doing really cool stuff with robotics. He was making... God damn it. Again, this makes it sound like it's great. Like, Andrew has learned so much. He has so much knowledge. He has so much creativity.
He is just a doctor.
He's like, let's work on these organs together. We can upgrade myself. I can use my knowledge. We can make robotics better. Mm-hmm. And they do. Like, they build...
They're growing organs that look like silicone.
Yeah. And like, the guy already has like a working face and skin, and they put that on. So he actually becomes Robin Williams. Mm-hmm. And then I noticed that the whirring stopped. Usually when he would move his body, there would always be robotic whirring. But just because he put skin on, that suddenly stops. But his eyes still do the twitchy robot thing, so you remember.
Right.
God, this is like halfway through the movie. There's still so much.
Yeah, and the yuckers parts really start to come in when...
Oh.
I mean, yeah, there's hints of that at the beginning when the original girl, I don't know, wants to marry him or whatever. But then, like you said, we get to this gendered robot woman that is so annoying.
Yeah,
Like, it's not a good personality chip.
No, I don't see how that guy still left that in her.
I know.
Oh, yeah, I had in my notes, casting call for the world's saddest, soggiest dog.
It just shows up at the front door one night.
Yeah, it's so wet and fluffy. But then he calls it Woofy, the name of the stuffed animal.
That the girl gave him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
God. So then the little girl dies, and she dies with the horse still in her hand.
Her son is Bradley Whitford and is an asshole.
Yeah, who apparently is supposed to be essentially what the husband acted like.
Yes.
And was, and hated robots and all that.
And he agrees with this whole thing of letting him go on this journey because it gets him out of his hair for
what a shitty
a couple decades. Yeah.
Also, I guess the granddaughter or whoever was doing the art restoration.
Yeah, it's the granddaughter.
She was just doing it in her living room, like in their house.
Yeah.
Like this probably like this statue that's worth millions of dollars probably. This is a huge historical.
Probably be in some kind of climate controlled.
Yeah, she's just chipping away at it in in her bedroom or living room.
One of my notes was that they really overshot how far robotics would have to come for people to fall in love with their. People love their Roombas.
Yeah.
they want their same Roomba back when they get them repaired. Like, they don't want new ones. It doesn't have to look like a human for people to love it.
But they had to make it look like Robin Williams. Which I bet they did that just because we're used to seeing Robin Williams. He's a very comfortable face. So it's like, yeah, if we're going to make a creepy robot out of anything, might as well be Robin Williams.
That was definitely one of my questions, was why him?
I'll follow up on that too.
Okay.
More notes. Why is the fashion so stupid? Why are the hats so dumb? Why is that lady wearing two hats? This movie is 200 years of bad hats.
That was one of my most 90s things was, this was later this was maybe halfway through his lifespan. Fuzzy neon animal print bucket hat. That's the most 90s thing. Because I think that existed in the 90s and it did not have to be futuristic.
Wow, I have not thought about bucket hats in a while.
Yikes. The kid had a bucket hat in Big Daddy, I believe.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But it wasn't neon.
Man, those used to be a thing, huh?
Yeah. I may have had one. I know
I did. I put pins all over it. It was a collection. I don't even know where it is.
Probably got some good pins on it.
It does. There's a ton on there.
So is this movie a kid's movie?
I don't know who this is for.
Because I have in my notes, why do they even need to talk about sex? There's a whole scene where he's going to get his genital upgrade, and they talk about it for a while. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what? Oh, I don't understand, because I don't care about cursing, but they're using curse words. They're saying like shit and ass and like talking about penises and talking about sex. I'm like, who is this for?
I don't know.
It looks like it would be for a kid's movie, but then as an adult watching this movie, this is just the worst, most juvenile bullshit.
When was the story written? Because I wonder if it's for adults in that year.
I don't know. I don't even know if this was part of it.
I don't know if its sensibilities were updated at all.
But it might be, because it might be that Gulliver's Travels thing where it's like, it's such an old movie, and when they talk about sex, it's so strange. Because I remember watching
because they did sort of still dance around it. They never...
Yeah, but they just danced around it for so long.
Yes.
So then I thought this was a kid's movie. I hate this movie. And then he was asking for kisses from the granddaughter because she was going to get married. Mm-hmm. She was in another position where she wasn't really thrilled about dating this guy or marrying this guy.
Right. He had just had his nervous system upgrade, right?
Yes, because she was telling him he should make bad decisions and do the wrong thing.
That's what makes humans human, is that they're imperfect.
Mm-hmm. Which was a good point.
Sure.
But then his way of acting on that is to ask her to kiss him and then just like be very upfront and forceful about trying to...
Yeah, like he knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
Like it's not like he walked up to any random person and said, I now have nerves. I want to know what it's like to kiss.
Yeah.
He goes up to this woman that...
Specifically her.
Yes, yeah.
And actually, I made a mistake. The first Little Miss, her marriage was bad.
Yes.
This marriage, there is no indication of how it is, good or bad. Like, it could be a great marriage.
We see him from across a pond.
Yeah. He makes fun of his chin.
Uh-huh. And I've always wondered what it's like to be those actors. You know what I mean? If you're the actor that they cast as the guy who the line is something like his face looks like a can opener.
Yeah. His chin could sink the Titanic or something like that.
Okay, what's that casting call like?
Yeah. We need a guy with a huge, gross chin.
And very bad eyebrows and, like, I don't know.
So, like, they could have a great marriage. And his whole thing was going to come and just wreck it and say, you got to kiss me. And then they kiss. And then they have sex because he got his upgrade. So, of course, he's going to have sex.
Come on.
You got the L-shaped blanket.
That scene made me feel so gross. I hated...
Yeah, it was just forced. And
we didn't see any of the sex, but the after part was still like...
Yeah. And this is with someone he considered to be part of their family, and just that aspect of it too. So I have like, I just have like, this is the worst in my notes. Oh yeah. And then he just goes up to the International Senate out of nowhere. He's like, hey, I want to be a human.
Yeah. What is that supposed to be, like the UN or?
I think
there's like somebody from every country's there. But...
Yeah. I think they didn't eventually show the name. I think it was like World Congress or something like that. But he just walks up to them, just like gets on the podium. Apparently you can just do that. You can just go to the international...
Again, presumably, this is something that he's been working up to for decades. But we don't know. We don't know. It just happens.
Yeah.
Like we have no...
But I'm glad they did, because like, what if they did show that? They would take another 5 scenes to show that. Like, I'd add 2 more hours of this movie. So they decline his request. They're saying, no, dude, you're a robot.
We're not granting you personhood. So basically, no, you're not allowed to get married because you're not a person.
Yeah.
Because at that point, they're dating, right?
Yeah, they do. They are together. They are wanting to get married.
This is the granddaughter.
Yeah.
Who is the same actress as...
Yeah. Which is still as or more creepy than...
Exactly. Exactly.
The original concept.
It's like, here's this clone because it didn't work out the first time.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you miss the first time, just wait.
Just clone her.
Just wait 200 more years, you get another chance. And they keep playing chess. Like, why would you play chess with a robot? That's cheating. Oh. And then eventually, he's like, I don't want my gross wife to die. I'm sad about mortality.
Right.
So then they go get their final upgrade.
Because he has watched all of his favorite people pass away.
Yeah.
Like Sam Neill, he was really attached to.
Mm-hmm.
The little sister, he was really attached to.
Well,
he's like, this will not do. What's the line? Is that the line?
I can't remember.
That won't do, or something like that.
Something like that. Sounds familiar.
So he sets out on this world history-changing quest to satisfy his own wants.
God.
So it's super weird like that. He is smart enough, but his only impetus is that it affects him personally.
Yeah. It's like, come on, man. Be a little bit more... You got something good going here.
Right. Like, he seems to be a little bit concerned initially because he does want to seek out these other robots that might have individuality.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't go anywhere after he can't find one. Then he's like, well, whatever.
Guess I'll die. But see, maybe that's the secret good thing about this movie is that is his mistake. That is his human mistake, is throwing away his immortality.
You're making it sound better than it is.
Shit. Guys, this is not a good movie. This is so bad. Do not watch this movie.
It's like you said, it's not pretty. It's not visually compelling in any way.
Nope.
There's uncanny valley happening.
There's bad pacing.
I don't like the characters.
Gross.
Except for Oliver Platt, he's good.
Yeah. Gross relationships.
Yeah, some very weird gender stuff, and yeah, I don't like that either.
And then it's okay. So this is finally to the end of the movie. He's a robot that's become human. He finally convinced the World Congress to grant it just because he's aging, I guess. Right.
Like, part of the technology, part of his upgrades was that he was sick of seeing all of his favorite people die, and so he basically programmed aging into himself.
Yeah. And then this somehow convinces the Congress to grant him personhood. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So then he becomes a robot that's dying with his dying wife. Mm-hmm. And they keep their own robot that takes care of them.
Right.
Like this whole robot that escapes servitude keeps another robot for servitude.
Well, I wonder, okay, so it was obviously supposed to be the same robot that was in Oliver Platt's lab. She has since gained a personality somehow.
I don't know if she actually gained a personality or not.
I think she was at least very different than what she had been, because she was like this impetuous, childish, spiteful thing, and now she's a caretaker. She's like the nurse to these dying people. Yeah, I didn't even think about it that way. I just thought of it as like she's been hired on as a nurse. I didn't think about it as maybe it was that she was just...
I guess it kind of makes sense that way, because even though at the time when she was first introduced, she wasn't that unique robot that Andrew was.
Right.
But they had since developed the technology to potentially, I assume, create that kind of personality, that uniqueness.
That's the thing. Like, we thought that Andrew happened by chance.
Mm-hmm. And it seemed to be.
And if it hadn't happened to her by chance, then presumably they have thought of a way to make it I don't know.
Man, this movie.
None of it.
And that's the movie. You feel how unsatisfying it is to talk about the end of this movie? They die.
He's 200 years old and he dies.
There you go. That's the movie.
That's the end.
What was it all for? Just to get you to think about robots?
It was all for a creepy love story.
Yeah. No. So, I don't know if it really works as speculative fiction, because I just kept on thinking about just how things weren't clicking properly.
The concepts, like you said, were very interesting, but that shouldn't have been the only thing the movie was built around.
Yeah, if a movie is better when people talk about the movie rather than when you sit down and watch it, there's probably a problem. Because I could see a lot of people listening to this and thinking, oh, there's some really good stuff there. Maybe this is a good movie. No, it's not. It's a very bad movie. But talking about the movie is the meaningful part of the movie.
Literally just read a scientific text about robotics.
Yeah, or watch RoboCop. I don't know.
That too.
What are some other good robot movies? Because I'm trying to think of more examples of
I haven't seen The Iron Giant yet.
Yeah, that one's a good one. That's a good one. So that's a good example of there is another plot going on that's not just... Yep. I need to watch that movie again. It's really good.
We will. It's on the list.
Yes. I'm so excited. And I keep bringing up RoboCop, but that's more of like transhumanism rather than robotics.
Right.
Because it's not really... you're not really dealing with AI. I mean, you have like other robots that do have AI.
That's even one of Andrew's arguments to the Congress is like, well, do you have your original hip? Do you have your original organs? Like, you are partially robot just as much as I am partially human.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, the difference is just the brain, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's what the original book was, The Positronic Man.
Oh, yeah.
Or his positronic brain.
Yeah. Okay. I can't really think of any other robot movies. Because Chappie had some aspects of personality, but Chappie was just God.
I mean, there's robots in plenty of other movies, like Hitchhiker's Guide.
So yeah, I think other movies know what they're doing in that regard of, you can't just talk about just the concept. You got to do more than that.
Right, like it's pretty much iRobot, which neither of us can say anything about.
Yeah, but it seems like there's, stuff going on in that movie. It's not just a guy getting old and marrying.
Right, it's not.
The granddaughter of the
I couldn't tell you what it is, but there is something else going on.
Oh, fucking AI.
Yeah.
But let's not talk about AI. We're basically having the same conversation that we can just go through and edit and just replace Bicentennial Man with AI, and we're just talking about the same movie.
Okay, that's good to know, because I haven't seen that one probably since it came out either.
So I saw that one in theaters, and that was just another long, drawn-out movie that had bad pacing, weird characters, weird character relationships, and was it just
basically to see a robot child?
I think so. I think it actually does remind me a lot of this movie. Is that what it even is? Yeah, because as a robot child, he can't age and whatever and all that bullshit. But it deals with a lot of the same concepts in terms of, it is a movie that is focusing entirely on putting these concepts in your face, and the other stuff going on doesn't really matter.
Right.
And it was directed by 2 different directors halfway through, so like, that's going to be great. Yeah, I think Steven Spielberg did the first half or something like that.
Yeah, that's never a good sign.
No. I recommend watching it only to see the train wreck, similar to what Bicentennial Man, how that was.
Is that bad. One better than this movie? Or are they both just like...
So this was my first time seeing Bicentennial Man, and I haven't seen AI since the theaters. But when I look back on the emotions that I felt watching those, I get the same kind of just gross feeling thinking about both movies.
Amber's been saying that she has seen this movie like 1,000,000 times.
Yeah.
And then I assume that there was a lot of space between now and the last time she had seen it, because she came back to me being like, I hated this. And I hadn't had that vibe from her before. That seemed to be new.
Yeah, I think as a kid, you let a lot of things pass, especially when it comes to pacing. Like you look at...
What is it that a kid would like in this movie?
Man, that is a good question. Because the only thing I can think of is the visual of Robin Williams as a robot interacting with people. But that doesn't seem like a really fun thing as a kid to look at.
No.
Because it didn't draw me in when I was a kid and it was on TV. That looked stupid as hell.
I mean, especially toward the beginning, a lot of the laugh lines would have been very juvenile, and that would have been funny for a kid probably. But the rest of the movie, I don't think.
Yeah.
That's super weird.
Because there was that one brief scene where they were talking about jokes.
Yeah,
and
that too.
Apparently those were ad-libbed, and like some of them actually made Amber laugh. Like, it was
more the delivery, I think, than the actual jokes.
The one that she laughed at was, and it was.
But he was a stand-up, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like initially.
Yeah, he did a lot of. I think that's where he started. I can't remember. The one was like a Buddhist goes up to a hot dog stand and says, make me one with everything." Like little one-liners like that coming from that robot was pretty nice, but that was just like one scene.
You have to wonder if he even understood the jokes at that time.
Yeah.
Or was he just repeating them?
But at least Robin Williams was ad-libbing them, and the actors were laughing spontaneously. So, oh man.
Yeah, I watched a little featurette that was on the DVD. It was like 5 minutes.
So how was that?
Basically, it was just me going, oh, that was actually him in a suit the entire time. That kind of surprised me.
Oh, that is kind of surprising.
That it wasn't some stunt guy.
Yeah.
So I guess that just goes to show that he's just as much a physical actor as he is a comedic.
Yes. As much as I hated this movie, I definitely appreciate Robin Williams. Like,
he did
the movies
good.
were... Yeah. He was a great fit for this, especially when...
He was not the problem with this movie.
Yeah, exactly. I think he was a great fit because he was so robotic up to the point where he got the face, and when he got the face, he was Robin Williams, but he wasn't Robin Williams yet.
Yeah.
And then his...
he knew how to inject those little things.
Yeah. And then once his full personality was unlocked, because I think he needed like something with his brain where he can fully emote, and then he was definitely Robin Williams, and that was the perfect casting for that to go from one side of the spectrum to the other.
So as far as drawing kids in, they would have recognized his voice from Aladdin.
Yes.
What else was he in?
Mrs. Doubtfire was it probably around there?
Yeah, that was the same director.
Man, that was a much better movie.
I haven't seen it in a while, but I have fond memories of it.
Me too. It's been a while, but I've seen that multiple times. And
so yeah, they definitely would have known his face.
Yes. And probably Jumanji, because he was making a lot of movies around this time.
Yeah. Yeah, this was definitely before he really came into the dramatic space.
And I do remember seeing Patch Adams, but I can't remember if it's before or after this movie.
Neither. There's no way to know.
That was a sad movie, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it was after that I feel like he was in the Insomnia remake.
I didn't see that.
And then there was the photo or whatever.
Yeah,
movie.
yeah. Apparently, I haven't seen that, but I saw the scene where he made the Evangelion reference.
Oh.
Because he was a big anime fan.
Really?
And a nerd. So like,
I had no idea.
So I think that was his injection into that movie, was that he was looking at in character this weird anime. And I can't remember. He might have even said the name wrong.
That's cool.
I mean, he named his kid Zelda because he was such a big gamer.
Wow. That's cool. I didn't know that. Man, what a fucking tragedy. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it really is. Especially like growing up in our age range. Like I know there's some years between us, but I think his influence and his career were definitely in the high points.
He was a part of our childhood.
Yeah. Because like Aladdin was... Hook was probably my first.
That too.
Yeah, he was really great in Hook.
I mean, he's good in everything.
Yeah, he's so emotive.
Comedians and rappers are usually the best actors in anything.
Just like Adam Sandler, he's another comedian who has done very serious roles really well.
Yes.
So I was going to ask my question to you. Who else would work in this casting? Who else would you cast to be this robot that the American audiences have to be comfortable seeing as an uncanny looking metal man?
In 99 or today's remake?
I would say, actually, I'm curious for both of those answers because I have a follow-up if you have some ideas.
Somebody who's good at physical comedy. I just don't know enough about modern comedians that aren't Canadian.
I'm trying to think of someone who's like very expressive.
I don't know if maybe someone very serious would be maybe a better option, because if you see somebody as stiff and you see them gradually warm up, that might be a more engaging way to do it.
Oh, the flip side is also interesting. You're used to seeing Robin Williams be fully expressionate, but now you're seeing him for years and years and years as this stoic...
a literal robot.
Huh. So, okay, I have a list. I checked on IMDb.
Please, yes.
This is other people who are considered for the role of Andrew Martin.
Okay.
As I go through these names, imagine him as this gross, uncanny metal thing that is standing...
in love with a young girl.
That is standing in the kitchen, looking at you from a distance, all creepy-like. First one.
Listening to opera and fixing records in the basement.
Tim Allen.
No. No.
Mel Gibson.
Absolutely not.
Harrison Ford.
What?
Michael Keaton.
Okay, maybe.
Alec Baldwin.
No.
Bill Paxton.
I'm gonna pass.
Jeff Bridges.
Maybe.
Richard Dreyfuss. Howie Mandel. Martin Short.
Nope.
Billy Crystal.
Okay, that one's funny. No, but that one's funny.
Jack Nicholson.
No.
Robert De Niro.
That's the same.
Steve Martin.
Maybe.
Dan Aykroyd.
No.
Bill Murray.
Jesus. All right, here we go.
Anthony Hopkins.
Yes, I'm Bill Murray.
William Shatner.
How many people did they consider?
Visual.
Did they all come in?
Almost done. Kurt Russell.
Please, I love Kurt Russell.
That's the list.
Can it be him now?
Oh, God. Picturing any of those people with that stupid metal face being creepy.
I think it's just that Robin Williams has this teddy bear quality.
Yeah.
That I think really did it.
I think so. Because, who is the person that would make you feel comfortable with that visual? Of course, him, not Billy Crystal. I'm picturing Billy Crystal's mannerisms as the robot. And once he gets full control, it's like, no, go back to being stoic. Let me unplug you here.
Take out your personality chip. Holy shit.
So even though they have good casting, it didn't save this movie.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably the only thing that salvaged it.
Yeah, I think so. Because, it was entirely about him.
Yeah. That is a person that you can build an arc of growth around.
Because, everyone else was just there for him to have gross relationships with.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You can build an arc around a good actor, but you also have to let them live in a plot as part of it.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that was missing, was there wasn't
it just didn't...
a good through line.
There was too much of a gap between everything that it just never earned any of... that's what made it so creepy, is that we don't know how they interacted before the little sister fell in love with him.
Yeah. And you would assume that they would have the same level of interaction too. Yeah. So the thing I do remember from AI is that it was another movie where they went on a robot journey, where they went around and saw different ways of being robots and humans. That aspect was also similar, but it was also similarly bad. So despite what I've said, I don't think there are good qualities to this movie.
Everyone had terrible age makeup.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
Practical effects otherwise were pretty good.
Yeah. When they had
his design.
The organ laboratory was really cool.
Yeah.
And when they popped them open to put stuff in, that was cool too. Man. There was just so much in this movie, but then
so little.
Yeah, I can't.
It's a little bit like, I don't know if you've listened to it yet, but it's a little bit like the Drop Dead Gorgeous episode where there's so much happening and nothing happening at the same time.
Yeah, so I think that was a point I was getting ready to make, was when you can't even talk about like the through line, you're trying to talk about the plot, but you're talking about something that happened in the first 5 minutes, and then you're referring to something that happened an hour in, like with Drop Dead Gorgeous and this movie. Like, I felt like when we tried to talk about the summary, it was just so... What's the word I'm looking for?
Other than the fact that they needed a certain number of years between things, like, it was linear in that sense, but nothing else about it connected.
Yeah.
There was...
It was all kind of timeless.
Yeah.
But maybe that was the point. Maybe Christopher Columbus was trying to do exactly that. God, I hate this movie.
So it doesn't hold up?
No. I don't know what I would have thought about it if I saw it as a kid. I probably would have also hated it. The pacing was like older movies where it's not going to get your attention and keep it.
Do you think that there is a way that this could be filmed as a movie? Like, again, without having read the source material, either one of us. Is there a way that this story is good?
So when I think about making a movie about a robot that lives for 200 years, I can't picture it working if you're going at it from the same angle. Like we mentioned before, if we put it into another context, if we have a character in Mass Effect who's been alive for years and years, and we see a sliver of that time.
We see who they are now,
yes,
and have hints of how they got there.
Yes. Rather than seeing from their entire lifeline.
Right.
That doesn't make for a good movie.
So maybe start in the middle?
Yeah, I would start in the middle or to the end. It's interesting that they tried to do this because there is a perspective that you get when you do see the full 200 years of life.
And that is some of the first writing advice that anyone will ever tell you is cut the first 20%, maybe the first 50 in this case, but always start later than you think you should.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what this movie would be like if they did that, if they started at the journey or something like that.
I mean, think about, wouldn't that be interesting to come into a movie where, okay, here's this robot, but he has a name and he makes clocks, he's creative, and he has money in a bank account, like that. There's some mystery there.
Yeah.
There's world building back there that we didn't have to see, but it makes the world feel full.
See, you talk about cutting the movie, but like I think about like, yeah, we can easily cut the first half of this movie and it'll be a better movie. But I think about, what else can I cut? I can cut the whole backside of the movie. That would make it a better movie. So we're just leaving to like, there is just scenes that I like and nothing else.
Part of what is horrible about it, okay, so there's this trope called wife husbandry, where I think what is so creepy about it is that we start with the little sister as a little girl. So if we didn't know any of that and we just have this robot who has an occupation and a bank account, and if we see him evolve from there, of like, here's this other adult that doesn't have any creepy like family baggage attached to him, but they become friends and blah blah blah, and that would maybe be easier to swallow than he knew her grandmother as a little girl.
Yeah. So is this right that all the times they depicted people of the daughter's lineage, the Little Miss, original Little Miss, her daughter, her granddaughter, hasn't that just been as if she were aging? Like, we see her as a little girl, and then we see the young bride, and then when we see, a little bit older, maybe another bride, we're seeing it's as if that little girl were aging along with him, which I know is like the point, but when you frame the film around that, it's like we're just watching this little girl and this robot grow together and eventually get old and die together. Even though it's different women involved, it might as well just be the same
I think
one.
That's a fundamental problem with the story as narrative, is that by its nature, we get attached to characters who then die, and then we have to start over. That's not really a way to build a cohesive story. Even if there's one thread that connects them, there's still too much. It's just too disorienting. It's too disconnected.
Because I could see, like, if it wasn't the same person, just someone who had, like, memory issues, It would work the exact same way. It doesn't matter who this girl is. It just matters that it was of the original Little Miss.
Right.
I think that might be part of why it feels so gross. Man, what a bad movie.
So we're going to hate it in another 20 years.
I think it's going to be the same or worse. I can't see this holding up for even like academic reasons. Because if you want the concepts, you got the stories.
Go to the book.
Yeah. You got the original sources. You're not going to get it from fucking Bicentennial Man.
Toward the beginning, Sam Neill is talking to the little sister as a grown woman. I believe that's the situation. But the quote I have is, "You can't invest your emotions in a machine." And my note is, phones.
And he did too. He really liked Andrew.
Yeah.
So he considered him part of the family. He can't say that.
I mean, he was Andrew's biggest advocate for years. Mm-hmm. He fought this company, like threatened them with lawsuits or whatever sort of exposition thing, so that the company wouldn't underhandedly like erase his personality.
Yeah.
He went to his lawyer about, can a robot have a bank account?
And even though he didn't initially believe that, the wife convinced him that that should be the case.
Right.
So he doesn't really have any business to say that to his daughter, other than just, I don't know, robot racism. Don't get married to a robot.
Yeah, maybe. And then again, overshooting how far robotics would have to go. Like, robots don't need to be anthropomorphic or even physical to replace human jobs. Like,
I mean, yeah, they don't now.
Robots are writing newspapers and pretty well.
Building cars.
They're going to be writing novels here soon, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess that's the thing that we love to explore is we love ourselves as humans. There's a lot of human stories out there. We turn animal stories into human stories. Mm-hmm. It makes sense why we think about concepts like this.
I mean, in Mass Effect, the humans are the underdogs. They're the scrappy little guys that everybody wants to hate on because they're new and they're outgoing and they're too loud. And
yeah, it's like the elves and the humans issue too. It's like elves live forever and they think humans are just this passionate,
yes, exactly,
careless thing that lives for a few years and then dies and is over. Yeah. Similar kind of concept. It just makes me want to play Mass Effect instead.
I'm 30 hours into the first game again. She's back!
Hey, you ready to talk about Bicentennial Man?
Again?
We just started.
Are you serious?
No.
It has been an hour and a half.
Oh, this is going to be a hell of an episode to edit. Done. Do you have any thoughts on Bicentennial Man?
Bicentennial Man is the most awkward and awful movie I've watched in a long time.
Okay.
So a whole therapy session I went through.
Yeah,
I think we just had one.
Okay, that's fine. You guys can keep talking.
We decided it wouldn't hold up.
That it's better if it were a concept in another movie that actually had a plot and maybe have just been a slice of his life rather than the whole 200 years.
You mean if the plot wasn't, how can we make this robot fuck?
They spent multiple scenes to set that up.
Yeah, that was a terrifying percentage of that movie.
Ugh. Why?
Getting him
There's
a dick.
No point. They're not going to have kids.
I don't know. They transplant balls, don't they?
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing, actually, is I think the science is they have the DNA of the donor.
Sure, but I'm
just saying,
I don't think this movie would have been better if they went into detail on Andrew Martin's balls.
No, you're probably right. What's the most 90s thing about this movie?
So a lot of the movie was timeless in terms of, you have something to say?
To me...
Do you want to just turn on this microphone?
No, it's fine. To me, the most 90s thing is just like he goes and travels around the world and sends this woman, Little Miss, basically carrier pigeon letters that are scrolls that he's handwritten out. And I'm like, why isn't there text messages? Why are there text messaging and why isn't there email?
Yeah, I definitely mentioned physical newspapers in the kitchen.
What the heck? Sorry, Brandon.
Maybe he just wants to make a good impression with handwritten letters.
Yeah, he's probably got a very nice Spencerian script or something.
Yeah, you can just upload a...
Sorry. It's because now he has to show off his handwriting script because he has the mobility and dexterity not to drop glass horses anymore.
Oh my god.
Or slice off his thumb.
Oh yeah, that did happen.
There's a lot of stuff that happened that we
That's why they went in initially, was to get his thumb repaired.
Yeah.
And he had to fight with the company about don't you fucking erase his brain.
So the most 90s thing about the movie Like, so much of it was timeless in terms of just like, this could be from any era. This looks equally stupid no matter where you place it. So the most 90s thing is it's Robin Williams in his prime.
Yes.
Which led him to play this dumb robot with the dumb smiling face.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about hats. That was some of the most 90s things. Their concept of the future and design and complete disregard for what tech would be is very 90s.
Yeah, that's a good point.
As well as the Celine Dion pop ballad over the credits at the end.
I don't remember that because I immediately shut it off.
Okay, well, it was Celine Dion singing a very 90s pop ballad.
Wow. Ooh, just a cherry on top.
Yeah. And I try to always sit through the credits when I watch these, and I don't know, so I've been getting into records, and part of the movie was that he was repairing an old record player. And so when it came to the music and the credits at the end, they were just like, here's this classical piece that they played, and here was the composer. And I was sitting there like, well, who directed it? Who was the director? Who was the singer? What was the orchestra? I was so mad that there was none of that information, because like when I go looking for records, I have to find out, okay, so which is the recording that I'm going to like.
Yeah.
Because I'm spending money on it.
It's such a
it just made me so mad that wasn't in there.
The difference between, you can't just get a record of this. I tried to find, and I have this issue with Spotify sometimes, I was trying to find an album for The Planets, Gustav Holst.
Totally.
And there's 30 different versions.
There's one that I grew up with.
Yeah. And that's what I was trying to find.
It ruined every other recording of Jupiter for me, because this one director has done it so perfectly, and I just can't do any others.
Yeah, I've tried. Like, I also had
exactly that piece.
I also had that childhood issue of like, I had a CD of, I don't know who directed it. I didn't know things like that when I was a kid.
Do you remember what the cover looked like? Because that's how I found it.
Vaguely, but I'll look around for that. But
I'll lend you mine. I got a CD of it.
I guess they just didn't care to include that information.
So mad.
It was like a lot of that movie. It just didn't matter. God,
I guess legally they also... That's the other thing, is like, this recording that they played had to come from somewhere. So legally, how can you put that in there without like even what record label?
Public domain?
Who recorded it?
Maybe it's been long enough to be in...
Yeah, the piece is public domain, but the performance shouldn't be, you know? That was just so weird to me. Anyway, that was my last gripe. Like, even when the movie was over, it made me mad.
I think I had more, but at a certain point, I stopped taking notes. I can only write, I hate this movie so much.
Yeah. Any last thoughts by either one of you? What do you want to say?
I feel like I have some, but I'm so tired.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, this is reflective of me having watched that movie, becoming brain dead. All right, any last thoughts for you, Amber?
Why did I watch this movie so much when I was younger? I don't get it. This was a movie that I saw at least 5 times.
You owned the tape?
I owned the tape. I watched the tape. I don't get it. I don't understand. And 31-year-old Amber, well, 30, I just aged myself 6 months, doesn't get why I watched this.
So we were trying to speculate, and we were asking questions of how this movie appeals to kids.
We don't know who this movie is for.
Yeah. Do you have any insight, thinking back at yourself watching this movie so much, of why it appealed to you and what kept bringing you back to this movie to watch it?
I just think I had a lot of time on my hands.
That's a good point.
To be quite honest. I don't know. I also was that stupid kid who liked AI. Like, I liked, like, the fairy tale.
Do you know what year that was? Because we were talking about that a little bit.
Either.
Again, there's no way to know.
I like the whole, like, that fairy tale aspect of, like, you know, Pinocchio becoming a real boy.
Tuck Everlasting.
Yes, I love Tuck Everlasting as well.
I never saw it, but it sounds like there's someone immortal in it.
There is a whole family who is immortal in it. And so I think it's just one of those things where I don't want to die.
Yeah.
And so it's like, this appeals to, like, I want to
But then it ends with him wanting to die.
Well, he didn't know what he wanted.
Yeah, we were saying that was the human mistake he made, was that he did the dumb thing and threw away his immortality, proving his humanity, or whatever bullshit.
And he didn't even fucking get to hear the ruling. Yeah. It was bullshit. It was a bullshit ending. This movie was bullshit.
That was very unsatisfying. Like, as unsatisfying as everything in this movie was, that probably was right at the top. Like, well then fucking what was the point?
The end. Now it's time for me to die.
All right. I don't think there's anything more I can say about this movie.
Just so much disdain.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
So I think if I didn't see this movie, I wouldn't hate it as much as I do now. So I'm glad I watched it, because now I know to stay away from this stupid thing. So, I don't know. Thanks. Thanks for inviting me on this journey.
Okay, well, it was supposed to be a 20-minute conversation, and we blew it up, so...
Enjoy editing this one.
This episode was originally scheduled to come out a little bit later, but I wanted to push it because since we recorded, the conductor I was talking about has died, and so I just wanted to say shout out to Andre Previn, you old cad. 1999 lives on at geekspective.com, where you can find other intelligent podcasts like this one. You can reach out to this show on the social medias at Plitgif, PLITGYIF. It's Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. And you can find me on Tumblr at Fifth from the Sun. So I'll talk to you next time. Hope to see you at the next party.